won battles, logistics won the war. This video documents every known Soviet transport and supply vehicle used during World War II, covering light utility cars, cargo trucks, tractors, motorcycles, armored carriers, amphibious vehicles, and more. We start our list with light utility vehicles and staff cars. Gaz-64. This was the first Soviet attempt at a military utility car. It was designed for reconnaissance and officer liaison duties at the front. Its narrow wheelbase made it unstable on rough terrain, and it was quickly replaced by a better design. Next, the Gaz-67. This became the Soviet equivalent of the American Jeep. It served reconnaissance units and commanders across every front from Leningrad to Manchuria. Its simple mechanics made it easy to repair in the field, though its open cab offered no protection from the brutal Soviet winters. The next one, GAZ-67B. This was the improved and most widely produced version of the Gaz-67. A reinforced chassis and wider track made it far more stable than its predecessor. It became the standard light utility vehicle for Soviet forces in the final years of the war. Now, this is the Gaz-M1, known as the MK. This was the standard Soviet staff car at the start of the conflict. Based closely on a Ford design, it carried officers and commissars across the rear areas. Its civilian construction meant it struggled on unpaved roads and offered no battlefield protection whatsoever. Next, Gaz-1173. This was a more powerful variant of the MK fitted with a 6-cylinder engine. It was used by senior officers who needed a faster and more capable vehicle than the standard model. Its greater complexity made maintenance harder in the field. Then, ZiS-101. This large luxury sedan was reserved for the very highest levels of Soviet command. It was used for official functions and state transport far behind the front lines. Its sheer size and weight made it completely impractical anywhere near combat. Up next, ZiS-110. This was an enormous limousine introduced during the final phase of the war. It became the personal transport of Soviet generals and senior party officials. Built for prestige rather than practicality, it was almost never seen near the fighting. Moving on to light and medium cargo trucks. Gaz-AA. This was the backbone of Soviet light logistics from the first day of the war to the last. Based on the Ford Model AA, it was produced in hundreds of thousands to keep the Red Army supplied. Its 1.5-ton payload was modest, but its simple mechanics meant it could be repaired by almost anyone. Next, Gaz-MM. This was a simplified wartime version of the Gaz-AA, designed to save scarce materials. Its wooden cab elements and stripped-down fittings reduced the amount of steel needed for each vehicle. It sacrificed driver comfort entirely in exchange for faster and cheaper mass production. The next one, Gaz-AAA. This was the 6-wheeled version of the Gaz-AA, offering better payload and off-road ability. It served as a troop transport, light artillery tow vehicle, and general cargo hauler across all fronts. Its third axle gave it noticeably better traction on the mud and snow of the Eastern Front. Now, this is the ZiS-5. This was one of the most critical vehicles in the entire Soviet logistics system. A rugged 3-ton truck built in massive numbers. It hauled ammunition, food, fuel, and men from one end of the front to the other. Its straightforward design made it easy to maintain and nearly impossible to wear out completely. Next, ZiS-5V. This was the simplified wartime variant of the ZiS-5 built to speed up production. Wooden components replaced metal wherever possible, reducing the vehicle's weight and manufacturing time. Performance in the field was nearly identical to the original, and it was just as dependable. Then, ZiS-6. This was the 6-wheeled heavy version of the ZiS-5 truck. It is most famous as the launch platform for the BM-13 Katyusha multiple rocket launcher. Without the ZiS-6, one of the most feared Soviet weapons of the war could not have been deployed effectively. Up next, ZiS-42. This was a half-tracked conversion of the ZiS-5 designed specifically for winter and mud operations. Tracks replaced the rear wheels to dramatically improve traction in deep snow and soft ground. Its mechanical complexity created maintenance challenges, which limited how many units could keep them running. The next one, YAG-6. This was a heavy Soviet cargo truck produced at the Yaroslavl automobile plant. It was used for moving large loads through the logistics network in the Soviet rear areas. Relatively low production numbers meant it never appeared at the front in significant quantities. Now, this is the YAG-10. This was one of the largest and most powerful trucks in the entire Soviet inventory. It was used by engineering and supply units to move oversized loads, heavy machinery, and artillery across the country. Its sheer size made it a vehicle of the rear, rarely operating anywhere close to the fighting. Moving on to artillery tractors and prime movers. STZ-3. This was a basic agricultural crawler tractor pressed into military service out of desperation. It was used to tow light guns and carry ammunition when purpose-built military tractors were unavailable. Its farm origins made it slow and exposed, but it was available in large numbers when the army needed them most. The next one, STZ-5 Nady. This was the most important Soviet artillery tractor of the entire war. A fully tracked vehicle derived from agricultural designs, it towed the guns of the Red Army across mud, snow, and open steppe. Its exceptional pulling power came from a rugged engine, though the cab offered the crew almost no protection from the cold. Now, this is the Comintern. This was a powerful pre-war heavy tractor designed to tow the largest Soviet artillery pieces. It was produced in limited numbers before the German invasion disrupted Soviet industrial output. Its impressive pulling capability made it highly valued. Next, Voroshilovets. This was the heaviest Soviet artillery tractor of the early war period. Designed to tow guns of up to 22 tons, it worked alongside the biggest weapons in the Soviet arsenal. Mechanical reliability issues and high production costs meant relatively few were ever built. Then, Ya-12. This was a late-war tracked artillery tractor designed to replace the aging vehicles that preceded it. It was simpler and cheaper to produce than the Voroshilovets and significantly easier to maintain. The Ya-12 became the standard heavy tractor for Soviet artillery units in the campaigns of 1944 and 1945. Next, CZ-65. This was an improved version of the 60 with a more powerful engine. It took on the heaviest towing tasks that lighter tractors could not handle. Its durability under extreme cold made it one of the most reliable tractors in Soviet service. Moving on to motorcycles. PMZ A750. This was an early Soviet military motorcycle produced before the German invasion. It served with border troops and reconnaissance units in the opening weeks of the war. Its pre-war design was quickly overtaken by more capable machines as production expanded. The next one, TIZ AM600. This was a heavy Soviet motorcycle used by cavalry and motorized reconnaissance units. It was deployed as a courier and scout vehicle in the fast-moving operations of the early conflict. Its design was gradually phased out as the superior M72 became available in larger numbers, moving on to half-tracks and cross-country carriers. GAZ-60. This was a half-tracked conversion of the standard GAZ-A light truck. It was developed to give the basic cargo truck better mobility across snow and soft ground in winter conditions. Like most Soviet half-track conversions, it was a practical field solution rather than a purpose-engineered military design. Next, ZIS-33. This was a heavier half-tracked conversion applied to the ZIS-5 truck chassis. It gave the standard cargo vehicle significantly improved traction on the notorious mud of the Soviet road network. Its complex conversion made maintenance more demanding, limiting its use to units that could support it properly. Up next, armored carriers and infantry vehicles. The next one, BA-3. This was a Soviet armored car used for reconnaissance and infantry support. Armed with a 45mm gun, it was more heavily armed than most armored cars of the era. Its wheeled design limited its off-road performance, which reduced its effectiveness in the terrain of the Eastern Front. Now, this is the BA-10. This was the most widely used Soviet armored car of the war. It served in reconnaissance, convoy escort, and infantry support roles across every front. Its relatively thin armor was a serious vulnerability against enemy anti-tank weapons. Next, BA-64. This was a small and agile Soviet armored car designed for fast reconnaissance operations. It replaced the older and heavier armored cars that had dominated Soviet service before the invasion. Its compact size made it hard to spot, though its armament was limited to a single machine gun. Moving on to amphibious vehicles. GAZ-46 MAV. This was a light Soviet amphibious vehicle based closely on the American Ford GPA SEEP design. It was used for river crossing reconnaissance and liaison duties across water obstacles. Its performance on water was modest, but it gave forward units the ability to operate independently of bridge engineering support. Moving on to armored recovery vehicles. 26T. This was a recovery and towing vehicle converted from the obsolete 26 light tank chassis. It was used to drag damaged vehicles off the battlefield and return them to repair workshops. Its light chassis limited the size and weight of vehicles it could effectively recover. Next, Brem on 34. This was a battlefield recovery vehicle converted from damaged or written-off 34 tanks by Soviet field workshops. It was the primary means of recovering the medium tanks that formed the core of Soviet armored strength. No two conversions were exactly alike, as frontline engineers improvised based on whatever materials were available. Moving on to Lend-Lease transport vehicles. Studebaker US6. This was the single most important foreign vehicle supplied to the Soviet Union during the war. Over 1 lakh were delivered, and Soviet commanders prized it above almost every domestic truck in their inventory. Its reliability, off-road performance, and payload capacity made it the foundation of Soviet motorized logistics in the final years of the conflict. Next, Willys MB Jeep. This American utility vehicle was delivered to Soviet forces in enormous numbers through Lend-Lease. It was used for reconnaissance, command liaison, and officer transport at every level of the Soviet military. Now, this is the Dodge WC-51. This was an American weapons carrier used extensively by Soviet motorized rifle units. It could carry a full squad of soldiers along with their weapons and equipment across rough terrain. Its four-wheel drive and reliable engine made it one of the most appreciated foreign vehicles in Soviet service. Next, Dodge WC-52. This was the winch-equipped version of the Dodge WC-51 carrier. Its front-mounted winch allowed it to self-recover from soft ground without assistance. That single feature made it especially valuable in the mud seasons that paralyzed the Eastern Front twice a year. Then, Chevrolet G7107. This was an American four-wheel drive cargo truck supplied through Lend-Lease in significant quantities. It served in Soviet transport columns alongside the Studebaker on roads across the Eastern Front. Its reliability in extreme cold gave it an advantage over many of the vehicles it operated with. Up next, GMC CCKW 352. This was the famous American 2.5-ton truck known as the Deuce and a Half. It served Soviet forces as a general cargo hauler and troop transport in the rear areas. Its standardized design made spare parts readily available and kept maintenance relatively simple. Now, this is the White 666. This was an American six-wheel drive truck used for the heaviest transport duties in Soviet service. It was often seen in logistics columns alongside the Studebaker, handling loads that lighter trucks could not manage. Its off-road capability made it well suited to the unpaved and often impassable roads of the Soviet theater. The next one, Austin K2 Ambulance. This was a British truck supplied to Soviet forces and converted for use as a medical transport vehicle. Its sturdy construction handled the rough roads of the front zone without breaking down under the constant demands placed on it. British-built ambulances played a quiet but essential role in keeping Soviet soldiers alive after they were wounded. Up next, Bedford QL. This was a British four-wheel drive truck delivered to Soviet forces through Lend-Lease supply channels. It served in transport and logistics roles in the Soviet rear areas alongside American-supplied vehicles. Its reliable performance earned it a solid reputation among the Soviet drivers who operated it. The next one, Valentine Tank as supply carrier. Some Valentine tanks supplied by Britain were converted by Soviet units into improvised armored supply carriers. Their hulls offered protection when delivering ammunition forward under enemy fire. This kind of field conversion reflected the Soviet military's practical approach to using every available resource to keep its forces fighting. Tanks broke through the lines. Aircraft controlled the skies, but it was the trucks, tractors, motorcycles, and carriers, Soviet-built and Lend-Lease alike, that kept the Red Army moving, supplied, and fighting from the gates of Moscow to the streets of Berlin. Every vehicle on this list played its part in the largest land war in human history.